The witness will testify in regard to this chapter.
You see, I'll call the
Too bad.
because
But I can't hear it. We can't.
I don't know.
Will you please cover your head? Put your right hand on the Bible and repeat after me. I swear by God that my testimony in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Full name, please.
Recht, Ernst.
Recht, Ernst.
The witness may be seated if he chooses.
I came about 2 hours ago from the
You may sit
hospital.
down. It is really not necessary to strain yourself. Where do you live, Mr. Recht?
I live in Herzliya.
Kurz gesagt, die Juden, die in den Transport kamen, wurden in einer Ubikation untergebracht.
The Jews who were earmarked for transport
Das war in Prag in der Messe.
were concentrated in a central place.
Dort wurden
This was a marketplace in Prague.
mehr leer gewordenen Wohnungen abgenommen.
Then the keys from their respective flats were taken away from them.
Zentralamt gebracht. Die wird das Zentralamt zur Krämeraktion, die damals noch nicht die Treuhandstelle war, gebracht.
These keys were then brought to the central office and from there to the board of trustees presided over by Kremer. This was actually called Kremer's action or Kremer's operation.
Eine Schlüsselabteilung.
There, first of all, was the so-called the key department dealing with keys.
Der Auftrag an die sogenannten Aufnehmer gegeben. Diese gingen in die Wohnungen, nahmen alle Sachen, die in den Wohnungen waren, auf, legten Verzeichnisse an und brachten diese Verzeichnisse zurück.
Then later on, from the keys department, as it was called, the officials were sent to the Jewish flats by means of the keys deposited with the department, opened the flats and made an exact list of the objects in the flats in question.
Bestandaufnahme.
They were called the registering clerks. They were actually registering all the objects in the flats which were evacuated by the Jews.
Uns für den Transport vorbereitet haben.
From this list, the objects were brought to the department. They were arranged in the department and prepared for being sent out to Germany.
Meistens beim Spediteur Holland in Prag, oft an einem Tag bis 20 Automobile, die 4 bis 5 und 6 Fuhren pro Wagen machten. Und gemeinsam mit der Abteilung, der Transportabteilung, wo ich zuerst als Arbeiter gearbeitet habe, wurden dann die Sachen abgeführt. Bei dieser Aktion waren zumeist am Anfang SS-Offiziere oder SS-Unteroffiziere anwesend.
From there, the objects were sent to the dispatching department. They brought the objects through the intermediary of the transport department. They would bring about 20 trucks, and all this action was supervised by the SS officers and SS NCOs.
President of Court, in regard to the interpretation into the Hebrew, calls attention of the interpreter that in regard to the number of trucks,
es waren oft im Tag 80 bis 100 Fuhren von Sachen, die aus jüdischen Wohnungen in die einzelnen Lager abgeführt wurden.
There were per day about 20 trucks, but as the firm dealing with it did not avail itself of so many trucks, they were compelled to borrow them from other firms, and very often about 80 trucks were going to and fro carrying the objects taken from Jewish flats. From 80 to 100 trucks were used. And they actually brought these objects from Jewish flats to specially arranged camps.
Question: when you speak of camps, do you
happen to them?
Zum Ältestenrat der Juden, also ins Büro, ins Zentralbüro des Ältestenrates der Juden, der in der Meiselgasse war, beordert.
I was ordered on the same day from my room to an emergency meeting with the elders of the council on Meisel Street.
Herr Dr. Kolek, Kraus, Dr. Engel und andere.
When I arrived, I saw Dr. Frank Friedman, Dr. Kolek, Engel, Kraus and others.
Friedman machte mir die Mitteilung, dass ich als Mitglied des neuen Ältestenrates ernannt wurde.
Dr. Friedman informed me that I was appointed a member of the Elders' Council, the new council.
Aus Franz Friedman.
This council consisted of Max Friedman, Dr. Max Friedman as the elder, Dr. Kolek as a worker of this council, and myself, Mr. Kraus and myself. The secretary, Dr. Stefan Engels, was appointed.
Dr. Friedman die weitere Mitteilung, dass ich zum Leiter der Treuhandstelle ernannt wurde.
And on this occasion, Dr. Friedman informed me that I was appointed the administrator of the trustee committee. And as from that time, you were in close contact with Günther. This is the question by the prosecution. Answer: on the same day or the following morning, I was ordered to appear before Günther.
Günther machte mir die Mitteilung nochmals, dass ich Leiter der Treuhandstelle wurde, machte mir meine Pflichten klar, und das erste war: Recht, wenn Sie nicht in Ordnung gehen, gehen Sie ins Konzentrationslager oder ich lasse Sie erschießen.
Günther explained the new duties and that I was appointed to this trustee authority. And the first thing he said was that if I do not fulfill my task as I should, you will be shot to death or sent to a concentration camp.
Diese Worte hörte ich fast jeden Tag.
I heard these words almost daily. Question.
Then tell the court, please.
Laut Aufstellung dieses Buches hier, Ende 1943, ca. 44.000 Teppiche in ganz hervorragender Verfassung im Lager gehabt. Günther,
ein Moment, das ist leichter so zu übersetzen, ja?
Therefore, the tasks Günther ordered me were very careful. Ginter called me and said, tomorrow there will be people from Berlin, a committee, which is authorized to see and inspect all carpet stores. According to our inventory, at the end of 43, we had some 44,000 carpets in our stores.
Recht, Sie haben in das letzte Zimmer des Lagers. Das Lager befand sich in der Langengasse in Prag, in den ehemaligen Räumen des Café Aschermann, des jüdischen Café Aschermann. Er beauftragte mich, das letzte Zimmer des Lagers, das war das 6. Zimmer in einer Flucht, auszuräumen und in diese Räume die besten Stücke, die einzelnen Stücke hereinzugeben, zuzuschließen und vor das Lager einen Kasten zu stellen, damit man nicht bemerkt, dass da noch ein weiterer Raum sich befindet.
He said that into the last room in Prague, to a certain store, what was in the front room, to make this room, the 6th room, in order, and
Judge Landau, the best carpets, wasn't it?
To choose the best carpets and to put a board before, to put a cupboard before the door so that these carpets are not seen and they do not notice there was another room. Mr. Baor?
In connection with these secret orders, I have one question. Do you remember an incident concerning a warehouse of books?
Erinnern Sie sich einer Weisung bezüglich des Bücherlagers der Treuhandstelle?
Das war keine Weisung, sondern das war eine Anordnung, die lange bevor ich ins Amt kam, bestand. Wir hatten in Prag ein Bücherlager zu dieser Zeit von mehr als 1 Million Stück. Dieses Bücherlager war öffentlich zugänglich für Käufer dieser Bücher und der Käufer dieser Bücher war der Besitzer der deutschen Buchhandlung in Prag, André. Diese Firma hatte den Zutritt zum Lager, konnte sich dort aussuchen, was sie wollte und gegen Bezahlung an das Zentralamt die Bücher übernehmen.
Herr Kerriger.
Sir, this was not an order, this was a ruling which existed even earlier, before I came into office. This was a large collection of books, some 1 million copies of very good books which could be purchased publicly against payment. The buyer was a German library in Prague, directed by André. They would come and choose books against payment by the central office and could choose at their pleasure.
Es war außer diesem offiziellen großen Lager noch ein kleines Lager in Prag in der Stupatsgasse eingerichtet. In diesem Lager befanden sich ca. 20.000 bis 22.000 Bücher, sogenannte Unikate, die nicht zum zweiten Mal, also wie der Name sagt, vorhanden waren. Und es waren solche Sachen, die wir nicht weitergeben durften. In diesem Lager war die Öffentlichkeit nicht informiert. In dieses Lager hatte auch André keinen Zutritt. Und als ich eines Abends zu Günther beordert wurde, hat er mir einen Brief vorgeworfen, vor meinen Platz geworfen und sagt, Recht lesen Sie. Es handelte sich damals um einen Brief der Firma André.
Right, Herr Kerriger.
Mr. Baor, just one moment, please.
Besides this large store of books, there was a smaller store. This was on Stuttgartgasse, and we had some 20 to 22,000 volumes. very special, and there were no further copies of those publications, or we were not permitted to hand them over. The public had no possibility of buying books there, not even André. One evening I will be sent to a concentration camp.
Mr. Bar-Or, what particular interest did Günther have in that small warehouse of the rare books?
Diese Frage ist hundertprozentig berechtigt. Günther hatte einen Ehrgeiz in sich, die schönsten und die besten Sachen auf irgendeine Weise zu verstecken und für seine Aufträge bereitzuhalten.
Was heißt seine Aufträge?
Aufträge, Aktenvermerke, wenn er mich gerufen hat, zu sagen, Recht, ich war der Amt.
This is a very justified question. Günther wanted to guard the best and to keep them for his own purposes.
Mr. Bar-Or, Mr. Recht, what you now relate, does this only concern books or also other objects in other warehouses?
Alles.
Bücher, all sorts of objects.
There were special small warehouses where they had special collections.
Yes, books, furniture, and other things of value, of special beauty.
Please tell the court about what you called Besonderaufträge, special assignments. Could you look at this report?
Please do
not open it yet. Is this the document? I should first like to submit this as evidence and then again show it to the witness for identification. Mr. Bar-Or, I'm sorry that I did not have the chance of having this copied.
T855.
This is the report about which I spoke. It refers to approximately 10,000 apartments. Were they in Prague or also in the smaller towns?
In Prague and in the vicinity.
Incidentally, in this report it speaks about the activities of departments. Could you explain this matter to the court?
Wenn eine Gruppe in der Wohnung eines Juden, der abgewandert war, gearbeitet hat, musste er diese Wohnung verlassen und mit einer solchen Etikette verschließen. Diese Etikette hier ist von mir gezeichnet. Das ist meine Unterschrift.
When a group would be busy in a Jewish apartment, a Jew who evacuated, we were supposed to lock the apartment and seal with a certain label. This label bears my signature.
You see in this page it speaks about a certain type of action. You see when you open on this page the number of the apartments. It states here that this corresponds to how many occupants?
Hier steht Folgendes. 9.200, das ist ganz kurz. 9.288 Wohnungen entsprechen einer Stadt von 45.000 Einwohnern.
It says here, in short, 9,228 apartments, which included 45,000 souls.
What is this diagram which you have in front of you?
Wir sagen so viel, dass man hier nicht erklären kann. Weil es gibt hier Tabellen, wo zum Beispiel steht, um alle diese Wohnungen, die geräumt wurden, zu erledigen und respektive diese Häuser zu bauen, wäre es notwendig, 92 Millionen Arbeitsstunden durchzuführen, um das zu tun.
These tables say so much that it is almost impossible to explain. For instance, here, in order to have such apartments built, some 92 million hours of work should be invested.
Was there a registration of man-hours put in by the people at this office?
Es gab keine Registrierung, sondern es gab Arbeit.
There was no registration, there was work.
Meine Freunde und meine Kollegen und Frauen und ältere Menschen, die zur Arbeit quasi dann später auch eingesetzt wurden, haben durch so und so viel Hunderte und Tausende Stunden gearbeitet, ohne zuerst überhaupt dafür ein Entgelt zu bekommen.
People, my friends and comrades, old and young, who were mobilized for this kind of work, worked for hundreds and thousands of hours, and at the time received no reward at all.
What is the picture which you now are looking at?
Möbellager in einer der Prager Hallen dar, so wie es fast in jeden Sokol-Hallen der Fall war.
The picture shows one of the furniture stores in one of the halls of Prague, as was the case in all the Stockholm halls.
Now the next picture, please. What do you see now?
Es wurden, nachdem die Arbeit und die ganze Geschichte schon überhand nahm, eine große Anzahl von Lager und Speziallager in Prag eingerichtet. Für diese Lager, respektive Speziallager, wurden zum Großteil die den Tschechen abgenommenen Sokol-Hallen uns zur Verfügung gestellt. Und außerdem wurden alle Synagogen dadurch zur Verfügung gestellt, dass man alles, was uns heilig war, herunterriss oder herunterreißen ließ und diese Synagogen zu Lagerstätten machten.
After that all this job became too big to handle, there were special stores set up which were prepared in all the Sokol halls, confiscated and taken from the Czechs. All synagogues were put at our disposal to serve as stores, and all holy things were removed, and they were turned to stores.
And this is a picture of one of these warehouses. And now the next picture, please.
Dieses Bild stellt einen Teil des Bilderlagers, das in der Synagoge in der Weinberge untergebracht war und für Aufträge des Zentralamtes bereitgestellt war.
This picture is part of the pictures store at the Weinberger synagogue, and which was prepared and set up in accordance with directions of the central office.
These were original paintings, weren't they?
Architekt Blitz, den vor mir gewesenen Leiter der Treuhandstelle, respektive durch seinen Mitarbeiter Architekt Schalek, gemacht wurden und im Auftrag Günthers.
Nein, die Frage war dieses Bilderlager, das sind Originalgemälde.
Judge Landau, the question was different. Those paintings in the warehouses, they were originals, weren't they?
Bildern, und ich nenne zum Beispiel aus der Sammlung von Pick, den großen Margarinfabrikanten in Czaslau, wo eine ganze Anzahl von hervorragenden, von erstklassigen Malern gemachten Bildern ausgeraubt wurden und zum Teil auch verteilt oder vergeben waren.
The first reply, these were paintings made by a Blitz who was before me in this office and his assistant. And here the question by the President of Court. My question was, are they original paintings? The answer, yes, they were pictures taken from paintings from Pick and mostly removed from his apartment and brought to this store.
Hier ist ein Bild eines Bücherlagers. Aus der Aufstellung vorne ist zu ersehen, dass wir zu dieser Zeit ein Lager von offizielles Lager von circa über 1 Million Bücher hatten. Diese Bücher waren in einzelnen Lagern in der Meiselgasse in Prag untergebracht, nebst des Speziallagers in der Stupalsgasse.
This is a picture of a bookstore, and we see that there were over 1 million volumes on the Meiselgasse in Prague.
Vor mir ist ein Bild mit Schreibmaschinen. Es gab ein Speziallager für diese Sachen und in diesem Lager befanden sich auch noch zu meiner Zeit eine große Anzahl von Schreibmaschinen, die hergerichtet wurden und dem Zentralamt zur Verfügung standen.
This picture, there are typewriters. This was a special store, and during my time there was an assortment of typewriters there at the disposal of the central office.
Now, Mr. Recht, we come to pictures who show workers. And I ask, all these objects, typewriters and furniture and so on in the warehouses, did all these objects undergo some kind of remodeling, some kind of treatment, some kind of renovation perhaps?
In diesem Heft wurde uns, oder es ist schon voraus, ich bin zu erregt, in diesem Heft ist auch zu sehen unter dem Motto, alt wird neu. Das heißt, es wurde aus vielen Gegenständen, die zerlegt und zerteilt wurden, sozusagen neue Stücke gemacht.
Judge Landau points out to the witness that if the witness is tired, he could rest. It could be his testimony could be stopped now and resumed later.
In this, we see that in this pamphlet, I may be too excited, but one can see the slogan, turning old into new, because many objects which were stored there were turned into new objects.
Befindet sich hier unter einem Kapitel Alt wird neu.
Mr. Bar-Or, who was employed in this renovation work?
And most of the articles are under the subject, turning old into new. Jews and Jewish women.
And I see here workers, men and women. Were they Jews?
In diesem Bericht sehen Sie Arbeiter und Arbeiterinnen. Sehen Sie den Judenstern an diesen Bildern?
Do they wear the Jewish star?
Of course. I know the people.
Auch das war ein Jude.
This man was also a Jew.
I now wish to submit this report to the court. Would you please, sir, hand it back to the judges? You told the court about
This and their collaborators, 1950.
Mr. Bar-Or, thank you very much.
T865.
Thank you. Mr. Baror, this report, Your Honors, was published in Geneva in June 1946. It says, beginning on page 99, that on the 5th of April I traveled to Prague in order to get in contact with the authorities of the security police in that city in order to be permitted to visit Theresienstadt. On the 6th of April, the visit took place in Theresienstadt. One had to carry out important conversations with Eichmann, the chief of the security police of the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, and with, he is called here Oberführer Eichmann, the expert on Jewish affairs, who was lately, the Eichmann lately traveled to Prague with representatives of the International Red Cross to discuss various questions pertaining to the Jews. Oberführer Eichmann had the duty of a first rank in the concentration camps of Lublin and Auschwitz. He told me that he was the direct plenipotentiary of the Reichsführer SS on all questions pertaining to the Jews. Later on, it speaks about the reception which took place at the Hradzin Castle in Prague, H-R-A-D-S-C-H-I-N. It says that the International Red Cross was interested in, they were asked whether they were interested in living conditions or housing facilities, or rather to find out whether it was only a transit camp for the Jews and whether there were any deportations from Theresienstadt to the east, to Auschwitz. As far as I could determine, in Theresienstadt, the Jewish senior Dr. Epstein was also deported to Auschwitz from there. He was the Jewish head of the administration of the camp. Then it speaks about 10,000 Jews who were employed in the extension of the Auschwitz camp in construction and administration. And on the bottom of this page, in the beginning of page 100, we read, in the course of the evening, Eichmann developed his views on the Jewish problem. He thought the Jews of Theresienstadt, as far as nutrition and medical treatment was concerned, was much better than that of many Germans. He said that Theresienstadt was the creation of the Reichsführer SS Himmler, who wanted to give the Jews an opportunity of organizing the ghetto in this camp and organize Jewish life, Jewish administration, with almost virtual independence. We wanted to give them the impression of being a racial community. The Jews of Theresienstadt were then to be sent to the vicinity to live in isolation, isolated from the German population. As far as the Jewish problem in its entirety, Eichmann expressed the view that Himmler wants to introduce now humane methods. Eichmann personally, he said, does not agree with these methods, but as a good soldier, he of course obeys the Reichsführer's orders.
Judge Rave, the translation is not exact.
Mr. Baror, I'm very sorry to hear that.
In Hebrew, this reservation is much wider, I would say. He does not at all agree.
Mr. Baror, sir, you mean the sentence Eichmann himself does not approve of these methods in their entirety? Gänzlich, you mean? I accept this, sir. Thank you very much. I shall have this corrected. Then they speak about a request of the International Red Cross to visit not only Theresienstadt but also Bergen-Belsen. And Eichmann, to whom the representative of the Red Cross addresses this application, promises him an answer in the few days. It later transpired that this visit did not come out because Eichmann could not be found in Berlin. This promise of the Oberführer Eichmann concludes this part of the report. The word of honor of Eichmann that no additional Jew would be deported from Theresienstadt is also mentioned here.
President of Court, in the Hebrew translation,
Aschenbrenner aus Korin, ein älterer Mensch, der hat mir geholfen, die schweren Arbeiten zu machen. Bitte?
At that time, the SS men opened a mess for them, some sort of a club, as it were. I was working there as an electrician, and I had an assistant, Aschenbrenner, an elderly man, who helped me in my work.
He helped you in this electrical work?
Yes, he did.
No, ich bin jeden Tag die Zeit, bin ich jeden Tag 6 Uhr früh in die Arbeit gegangen und wir haben bis spät Abend gearbeitet. Und ich kam einmal und hatte einen Zettel dort auf dem Tisch, wo ich in der Werkstätte, wo ich war. Und ich soll nächsten Tag soll ich mich melden, auch so wie die anderen dort vor Eichmann, dass ich dort vorbeikomme. Und da habe ich gesagt, wenn ich dort arbeite, gut, bin ich um 6 Uhr wieder in die Arbeit gegangen. Dort hat auf uns ein SS aufgepasst, der war ein Österreicher und ich habe es ihm gemeldet. Und der hat mir gesagt, du wirst nirgends hingehen, du musst arbeiten. So bin ich nirgends hingegangen, habe weitergearbeitet und spät abends bin ich nach Hause gekommen. Da sagt mir ein Ghetto-Wacht... Bitte schön.
Then we were going out to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we were continuing our work until late in the evening. Once, when I came to my workshop, I saw a note on the table in the workshop. This was a note which ordered me to report before Eichmann next day. I thought I would do so. I said that first of all I would have to go to my workshop. First of all I went to my workshop, as I said, at 6 o'clock. An SS man was there. This was an Austrian, and I told him about the note I'd found on my table. He told me, won't go anywhere. You're here to work, and you'll continue working here. So of course I stayed there and worked.
So you did not report as you were told to in this slip of paper?
Auch ein Offizier, so bin ich dort geblieben, habe gearbeitet.
I was, after all, a soldier myself, and I was used to getting orders, and the SS man was also an officer and also my superior, and therefore I obeyed him and stayed in the workshop and continued my work.
Der Ghetto-Wachmann hat mir gesagt, man wird dich aufhängen. Die SS sucht dich. Da habe ich gesagt, man wird mich aufhängen, ich werde nicht der Letzte sein. No, also, aber ich habe nicht so viel Wert darauf gelegt und bin wieder in die Arbeit gegangen, weil der hat mir gesagt, du wirst niemand her, nur mich, weil das muss fertig sein. So bin ich wieder in die Arbeit gegangen.
Okay, Reger.
Bitte.
The last order for me was the most important one, and therefore I was working on. When I came home, I was encountered by the ghetto guard who told me, they're looking for you, you'll be hanged. And I say, all right, so they will hang me. I'll not be the last man who was hanged. I didn't attach any importance to what he said. And the next day I also went to work because the SS officer told me that I had to complete the work and I had no right to report anywhere.
Arbeiten gegangen.
Sprechen Sie etwas lauter, bitte.
Um 9 Uhr circa ist erschienen ein SS, noch mit einer Ghettowache, und haben gesucht, den schweinstinkenden Juden, Nummer M534, und ich soll sofort mitgehen. Das war ich für die Herrschaften. Und da bin ich halt hingegangen.
In the morning when I went to work, after some time, at 9 o'clock approximately, an SS man came together with a ghetto guard, and they were looking for this dirty, stinking Jew, number M543. This stinking man, of course, was I, according to what those gentlemen said.
Hat sich der mich gekommen ist, also in eine Militärstellung gestellt und hat gemeldet, Stinkjude, Schwein, M534 und den anderen Namen auch, welche Nummer der gehabt hat, weiß ich schon nicht, dass uns gebracht hat. Also
Okay, Reger.
Then I went with him, and also the man who was supervising my work in the workshop went with us. We were brought to a central place. We were staying at attention, and then the SS who came at 9 o'clock and took me there said, "You dirty Jew, you swine," and other epithets of this kind.
How many people were there when you reported?
Ich glaube, es waren circa 10 Leute dort.
I understand the question, but I do not recall exactly. I believe that there were about 10 people there.
Did you there see anyone whom you immediately recognized?
Ja, nur dort war der Rahm, das war der Lagerkommandant, und dann war dort ein von der technischen Leitung ein gewisser Herr Sever, der war Ingenieur, das war ein Jude aus Prag, der ist auch dabei gesessen.
Yes, of course, there was Ram, the camp's commander, and also a man from the technical department, Seller, who was a Jewish engineer from Prague. He was also there.
Sever. What was his name?
Sever.
Sever was a member of the Jewish Council of the ghetto?
Yes.
Who was in the middle?
I was told that this was Eichmann.
Who told you that?
Sever.
What happened then? President, I think the director of the transport or somebody, I don't remember, told us to get off the train. It was the commander of the transport, Engineer Kosiner, construction technician Kirchner, and myself. And there we were facing an SS man who introduced himself, who told us that this man, one of the officers, I don't remember who it was, introduced the man and said that this was the accused. And we entered a big covered truck.
The three of you?
Yes, the three of us.
Can you remember what kind of car this was? Was this a truck?
No, it was a private automobile, perhaps a military one. It was a closed car. It was not a truck. We, with the accused and the three of us, went into the forest. After about 15 minutes, in that wood, there was snow. And he told us, this is the place where you will work. You will have good conditions here. It will not take 6 weeks, as you were told by the administration. It will take much longer, but you will have a fine summer. It will be perfectly fine here. And he explained to us what he wanted.
But what did he want?
He wanted us to set up these barracks which we had brought along, scattered among the wood. We should have cut down the trees. We thought that perhaps the barracks should be so as they shouldn't be in one line, but scattered in the forest. I shall never forget this. It was towards the end of July or the beginning of August. I myself received from Stushka orders to draw up on a piece of paper a scaffold for hanging people for hanging 3 people simultaneously. I am an engineer, but I had never been asked to do such a thing, and I had orders to do this by 1 o'clock of that afternoon. So I consulted my other 2 engineer colleagues, and they had never heard of a scaffold for 3 people. Well, we did something, nevertheless. I brought this to Stuschka in his office, and there was the Scharführer Hanse was present there. I showed this sketch. It was okay, it was approved. Well, it should have, they said that this had to be out of iron, the rings, and they needed a thick rope, and we spoke about this. Well, I mean, this was all how to hang people. And he told me, yeah, it's okay, it's fine, you just go and take your carpenters, and tomorrow by 1:30 I wish to see this scaffold standing up. It should have...
What kind of gallows?
Well, it should have been a portable gallows. We did not know what to do, but these were orders. So we took the carpenters at 6 a.m. and we took timber from the forest. We made the parts of this gallows. And I saw that by 1:30 I will not be finished. So I had to leave. And I told these people, because otherwise, well, I told the people, I went to Stuschka and I told him it would not be ready on time. I said about 3 o'clock perhaps it might be finished. And he said, okay. So we finished, we tried the thing, and I went to report that it was ready. He did not come, he did not see it, and it was just lying there next to our barracks. But this feeling of having built this gallows, there is an acquaintance of mine who would see me and he would always say, do you remember how we built this gallows? And this I remember.
Were you hungry, Mr. Engelstein, at that place?
Yes, at the end of this year we did not get enough food.
Did
No.
the food continue to come from Theresienstadt?
They did continue to come.
And will you describe the situation before you left the camp at Sossen?
Before we left the Sossen camp, there was a warehouse full of rotten bread, rotten sausage, moldering sausage, and all these things. And I meant to say moldy sausage. And I saw my friend standing next to the kitchen searching for potato peels, rotten potato peels. What we had received, it was all rotten. About half of it was rotten, and they were still looking for the peels. And I too did this. We saw weeds near the road. We thought perhaps this was some kind of an edible plant, like kind of a garlic. We took that, we boiled it, but later we learned that it was wild garlic, yes. Yes, we ate that too. We had our last working place was a third place. There was the second camp, and then this third, we built something which half of which was underground out of concrete, half of it was underground. This was in addition to these two camps which we built.
Why was this place built?
Well, they said it was a building for the Führer. That's what we were told. So when we walked in the fields, several times we saw potatoes, and if nobody watched us, the guards, if they weren't watching, we took these potatoes and ate them on the spot without cooking it.
Mr. Engelstein, on the 10th of February 45, you returned to Theresienstadt.
Yes, on the 1st of February, we did not leave the barracks anymore.
Why? I understand, but when did he say so? When did he tell you that, to be calm? Immediately on your arrival?
No, he said that when he brought another...
When an additional transport was brought from Theresienstadt.
Yes,
you
yes.
are better off than the Theresienstadt camp. What happened at the end of February, Mr. Edelstein?
Well,
you went back to your work.
I returned to the technical department where I had been working previously, and we were taken to another place to work.
Mr. Engelstein, this is not interesting. What happened at the end of February, please?
At the end of February, I was given...
You were given new instructions.
Yes, I was given new orders to work together with another engineer.
What was his name?
Kolischer was his name, and he explained to me, he took me on the very first day out of Theresienstadt to a place called Ravelin. R-A-V-L-I-N.
As an engineer, what was this place actually?
Well, I was there for the first time.
Later you learned to know the place well.
It was just before we got to Theresienstadt. They had these old fortresses. They had long corridors, long halls with openings.
Were they underground?
It was underground on the one side, and on the other side there was a long canal between Theresienstadt.
This was dry, wasn't it?
Yes, there was no water in this canal. And this was between Ravelin and Theresienstadt. And they had these openings on the one side in Ravelin.
What for, these openings?
These were what we called Schießscharten, openings where they would shoot out of them. These had about every 60 centimeters.
There were snipers' holes at
yes.
Every 6 meters.
And our orders were to seal these snipers' holes hermetically.
How was it called, this Ravelin?
It was called Ravelin 20.
And the order, Kolischer was your superior. You were his deputy, his assistant.
Yes, I was his deputy. He was not there all day. I was in charge.
And your job was to build up those snipers' holes.
Yes, we had to clean all these places. It was a very ancient building. It had dated back to the 18th century, maybe. We were ordered to seal all these openings, to clean the place. They had these long halls, and then short halls were branching off. And at the entrance there were these cells, little cubicles. We tore that down, all these separate partitions. It was just, we left only one open room, completely open, and thus we went on with this work until the beginning of March.
You said that you were supposed to build up those holes. How?
Hermetically.
What do you mean by hermetically?
no air should
Were you told why?
go in. I was first told these would be warehouses for
Told you
vegetables.
to store vegetables. Did you believe it?
I couldn't believe it
Why not?
because for vegetable storehouses one needs ventilation and not one doesn't seal off and make it all dark.
That is, when you completed this, were you to complete this job, this Ravelin 20 would have been quite closed to air, hermetically closed.
Not quite 100%. At the beginning, we had these 4 towers, wooden towers.
5 meters long,
Yes.
and made out of
Wooden
wood.
towers.
The diameter, what was the diameter of those?
About 80 centimeters approximately.
What were you supposed to do with them?
We dug we dug in 4 places. We dug these trenches up to the ground, and once on one day we took these towers down to the place where these corridors were.
They were closed watchtowers, like a tube, weren't they?
Yes, like
Questioned by President of
cylinders.
Court.
They had these openings down below.
Attorney General, this went right down to the floor of this corridor.
Yes, to the floor. And at that time, I lived in a stable. It was a converted stable.
Who did you live with?
I was there with 80 people. There was also an engineer named Otto Polak, who is now in Czechoslovakia. And he used to work in such wooden constructions. He brought me a blueprint once. And we had to do something in that carpentry shop, and it said it has to be gas dicht. It should not let any gas in or out.
Gas proof.
Yes, gas proof, they said it had to be.
And then?
Well, what did I do? I did not want to get into trouble. When I was in Germany, I saw that the 1,000-year Reich had been crumbling, and I wanted to get out. So I pretended to be sick, and I got out.
You wanted not to have anything to do with this work.
Yes, I feigned sickness. It was work at 6 o'clock outside of Theresienstadt. I said I couldn't do it anymore. And then I heard that I was still present there. They had rumors there in Theresienstadt that they had gas chambers.
What month was it already?
Oh, it was at the end of February or beginning of March 1945. Yes, among the inmates, they had these rumors that these were gas chambers. And once during the night, people went out into the streets, and SS officer Ram came. Yes, the commander, Ram, with his assistants. I was not present. I heard about this, and he told them that they should be quiet, things won't be too bad. Then on the next day, he summoned the director of the technical department, Erich Kohn, to Ravelin, and claimed that he said to Kohn that Kohn was the man who was circulating the rumors that these were gas chambers, and threatened. He beat him for about half an hour. And about a few days later, I don't know, a week maybe, they stopped this work at Ravelin. Oh, about the middle of March or so, they stopped working there. Was
All of a sudden?
Yes, it was suddenly.
And you stayed on at Theresienstadt until the end of...
Yes, I stayed until the end of the war. When the Russians got there on the 9th of May, I left Theresienstadt on the 13th of May, 1945.
Do you remember the first visit at the end of March or April 45, the representative of the Red Cross?
Yes, his name was Dinan, Mr. Dinan. I think it was exactly on the 4th of April 1945 when he entered camp, and then they painted all the buildings with red crosses, and in the last few days the flag of the Red Cross was hoisted.
What flag was there before? Or there was no flag at all?
Perhaps on the headquarters they had this flag.
Thank you, Mr. Edelstein. President of Court, Dr.
President
Servatius.
of Court, Dr. Servatius, have you any questions? Dr. Servatius, I have no questions.